Shabbat Shalom, family. All praise to the Most High, the creator of the heavens and the earth, the seas and everything that's in them, the power of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Thankful for another Sabbath. I pray everything going well with y'all and that y'all's week have been prosperous. You've been protected. Strongholds been destroyed. Brothers and sisters being healed. Miracles and wonders manifesting. And increasing in the character of the Most High. Increasing in righteousness toward the one who made us and chose us, and made covenant with our forefathers, us being the children of Israel, the so-called Negroes, all right? So, I wanted to upload this video, or this audio video, in regards of what I made mention to, with the desire to read the Willie Lynch letter, and prior to this, I did some research about Willie Lynch himself, or William Lynch. And on the web, you got information stating that, the whole thing is a hoax. But I say to that, discern with wisdom. What we'll read here, we'll see that we, the children of Israel, we still in real time being affected by this. You know what I mean? So, it can be taken whether they saying it's a hoax or not. It's very real. You know what I mean? It can be exercised. It can be recognized and identified in our community easily. All right. And also, one of the main things of why I decided in this hour, just before we get into it, to upload it at this hour, because I know brothers and sisters scattered abroad still need edification, even in a late night hour. This could be this very well could be the engagement necessary to keep brothers and sisters from, transgression, or just to keep your mind stayed on the Most High and focus on the walk. So I pray that it be received, that it be edifying, strengthened, and so on and so forth, man. All praise, glory, and honor goes to the Most High. All right, so without further ado, it reads, the Willie Lynch letter. The making of a slave. This speech was delivered by Willie Lynch on the bank of the Jamestown River in a colony of Virginia in 1712. Lynch was a British slave owner in the West Indies. He was invited to the colony of Virginia in 1712 to teach his methods to slave owners there. The term lynching is derived from his last name. December 25th, 1712. Gentlemen, I greet you here on the bank of the James River in the year of our Lord, 1712. First, I shall thank you, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I'm here to help you solve some of your problems with slaves. Your invitation reached me on my modest plantation in the West Indies, where I have experimented with some of the newest and still the oldest methods for control of slaves. Ancient Romans would envy us if my program is implemented. As our boat sailed south on the James River, named for our illustrious king, whose version of the Bible we cherish, I saw enough to know that your problem is not unique. While Rome used cords of wood as crosses for standing human bodies along its highways in great numbers, you are here using a tree and the rope on occasions. I caught the whiff of a dead slave hanging from a tree a couple miles back. You are not only losing valuable stock by hangings, you are having uprisings. Slaves are running away. Your crops are sometimes left in the fields too long for maximum profit. You suffer occasional fires. Your animals are killed. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are. I do not need to elaborate. I'm not here to enumerate your problems. I am here to introduce you to a method of solving them. In my bag here, have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. My method is simple. Any member of your family or your overseer can use it. I have outlined the number of differences among the slaves and make the differences bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control. All right, so family, excuse it if it's any type of bother of any kind of way the way I'm reading, but I'm trying to, relay this message in a way, what I'm saying? We got to analyze the mindset of this devil. You know what I'm saying? This wicked demon. You know what I'm saying? To see how he conveyed it over. And just putting ourselves in the shoes to be present there. You know what I mean? The imagination is a beautiful thing. It was given by the Most High. All right, so let's utilize it. We're continuing on. It says, these methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this simple little list of differences and think about them. On top of my list is age, but it's there only because it starts with an A. The second is color or shade. There is intelligence, size, sex, size of plantations and status on plantations, attitude of owners, whether the slaves live in the valley, on the hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action. But before that, I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy is stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. The black slaves, after receiving his indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves versus the dark-skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have you white servants and overseers. Distrust all blacks. It is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intensely for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful of each other. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, so what we reading, fam, we see that he even saying, don't you just use it, man. You let your wife use it. You let your children use this system. And along with that, he inflicting the system not only on the man, but on the woman and the children. All right, but we're going to continue on as we see at the bottom of the screen. This one here, from what I've seen, I didn't even know it had 4 parts to it. But it does. All right, so now we're reading a section of Let's Make a Slave. It was the interest in the business of slaveholders to study human nature, and the slave nature in particular, with the view to practical results. And many of them attained the astonishing proficiency in this direction. They had to deal not with earth, wood, and stone, but with men, and by every regard they had for their own safety and prosperity, they needed to know the material on which they were to work. Conscious of the injustice and wrong they were every hour perpetuating, and knowing what they themselves would do. Were they the victims of such wrongs? They were constantly looking for the first signs of the dreaded retribution. They watched, therefore, with skilled and practiced eyes, and learned to read with great accuracy the state of mind and heart of the slave through his stable face. Unusual sobriety, apparent abstractions, sullenness, and indifference indeed. Any mood out of the common was afforded ground for suspicion and inquiry. Now look at that. So as long as you not a smiling, receptive, bowing down, spineless, docile Negro, you was good. You had no reason, or they had no reason to expect or look at you in any other altered way, you know what I'm saying, or under suspicion. That's what it's saying here. It's saying that they studied our people so much to, in the same time, indoctrinating them into this mindset, this destroyed mindset. Said that, look, if they had any other type of faith where they were, what's the word to use, unusual sobriety, like you focused. Now, what you thinking about? You thinking too hard over there. What you planning to escape? You planning to rise up or revolt? There's reason and grounds for suspicion and questioning, inquisition. All right, I want to go back to this part though. It says, they had to deal not with earth, wood, and stone, but with men, and by every regard they had for their own safety and prosperity, they needed to know the material on which they were to work. So having them disconnected, I don't know. I'll let y'all elaborate on that, man. All right, we're jumping down to the second portion of Let's Make a Slave. It says, let us make a slave. What do we need? First of all, we need a black nigger man, a pregnant nigger woman, and her baby nigger boy. Second, we will use the same basic principle that we use in breaking a horse, combined with some more sustaining factors. What we do with horses is that we break them from one form of life to another. That is, we reduce them from their natural state in nature. Whereas nature provides them with the natural capacity to take care of their offspring, we break that natural string of independence from them and thereby create a dependency status so that we may be able to get from them useful production for our business and pleasure. So now we see, even on a higher form, or either a further, on down the line, that this thing's still applying, because when he talking about breaking that string of natural, what did it say? Break that natural string of independence from them and thereby create a dependency status, have them solely dependent on us. Like he said in the part prior to this, he said they must love, respect, and trust only us. Yet, at the end of this, it says the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful of each other. So separate them from themselves, divide them amongst themselves, have them with the mindset and the desire to unite with us, but all together, we only using them. Take away what they need, their basic necessities and opportunities, and the environment that they need, and the nurturing of those environments, so that we can create animals and beasts and a self-hating people. Take them from their natural state of knowing that they great, that they wonderful, that they the true Hebrews, even like what Nick Cannon mentioned, or how the Most High used him in that case. All right, but nonetheless, this is where you get this Section 8. This is where you get the food stamps. This is where you get where we depend on, the younger generations, and even in the old, feeling like the only means of gaining some type of wealth, you gotta, go do something illegal, something that's gonna risk your life. Go sell drugs, be the rapper, be the basketball player, be the NFL star. Being dependent on them. Don't go buy a house, get you an apartment. Because at the apartment, They'll come cut your grass. They come do inspections in certain ones. They take care of anything break down. Whereas if you buy a house or you buy some land and you put a house on that land, you cultivating all that. So you got more control. You can do more. It's a sense of freedom that come with it. It's a key to freedom involved in the purchasing of land and having a house in regards to being dependent on others by having an apartment, though it's convenient. But that's the trick, nonetheless. All right, so let's continue on. It says cardinal principles for making a Negro. It says, for fear that our future generations may not understand the principles of breaking both of the beasts together, the nigger and the horse, we understand that short-range planning economics results in periodic economic chaos. So that to avoid turmoil in the economy, it requires us to have breadth and depth in long-range comprehensive planning, articulating both skill-sharp perceptions. We lay down the following principles for long-range comprehensive economic planning. Both horse and niggers is no good to the economy in the wild or natural state. So long as these Israelites understand that they the Most High chosen people, they not going to be the talkers, so they're not going to buy the products that we have on the shelf. They're not going to be trying to, make us rich. They're not going to serve us. They understand that we supposed to be serving them. This is the Gentile mindset. This is what these wicked ones is saying. These heathens. You know what I'm saying? He's saying, look, if they understand who they are, they not going to support our system. All right, it says both must be broken and tied together for orderly production. For orderly future, special and particular attention must be paid to the female and the youngest offspring. Both must be crossbred to produce a variety and division of labor. Both must be taught to respond to a peculiar new language. Psychological and physical instruction of containment must be created for both. We hold the 6 cardinal principles as truth to be self-evident. Based upon the following, the discourse concerning the economics of breaking and tying the horse and the nigger together, all inclusive of the 6 principles laid down about. All right, so keep, as you notice, the economics is steady referring to that. They want their money. They doing it for gain. Now, if you already getting money out of these people, working them like machines, why you need to beat them and kill them? You know what I'm saying? So it go to greed and being bloodthirsty, being demonic, man. And I wouldn't be surprised if this devil, you know what I'm saying, got his information from a pure demon, a evil spirit that then whispered in his ear. Probably was a warlock himself. All right. Picking up though. Both must be taught. Okay. All right. So right, it says note. Neither principle alone will suffice for good economics. All principles must be employed for orderly good of the nation. Look at how they thinking. He thinking for the good of, he ain't just thinking about himself. That's why he even made that trip. Accordingly, both a wild horse and a wild or nature nigger is dangerous even if captured, for they will have the tendency to seek their customary freedom, and in doing so might kill you in your sleep. You cannot rest. They sleep while you are awake, and are awake while you are asleep. There are dangers near the family house, and it requires too much labor to watch them away from the house. Above all, you cannot get them to work in its natural state. So again, if these Israelites understand who they are, they gonna have the mindset like, no, the Most High said we special and above all. So I'm not finna work in the field for you. I'm gonna go buy my own land, make my own field, and build my own kingdom. All right. Above all, you cannot get them to work in this natural state. Hence, both the horse and the nigger must be broken. That is, breaking them from one form of mental life to another. Which is why we go into the scripture to say, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It's an attack on your mind. It's an attack on our minds. All right, it says, keep the body, take the mind. In other words, break the will to resist. Now, the breaking process is the same for both the horse and the nigger, only slightly varying in degrees. But as we said before, there is an art in long-range economic planning. You must keep your eye and thoughts on the female and the offspring of the horse and the nigger. A brief discourse in offspring development will shed light on the key to sound economic principles. Pay little attention to the generation of original breaking, but concentrate on future generations. Therefore, if you break the female mother, she will break the offspring in its early years of development. And when the offspring is old enough to work, she will deliver it up to you. For her normal female protective tendencies will have been lost in the original breaking process. So she didn't see her oldest boy get broke. She saw how that went. She don't want no more of it. She saw her second, well, she was strong with the first one, and it touched her. But she still had some wherewithal. Her second son or daughter, you know what I mean, came out, and she saw that child go through the process. Broke her some more, made her more weak. So when by the time it get to the youngest, that's why he said, and prior to this part, said focus on the youngest of them. So the youngest one, which would be the future of their generation or their family, he said that the youngest one, you know what I mean, that's the future, and that's the one you want to target. That's the one you're going to break down. Even like now, what we dealing with on a high scale, it's been going on, but the truth springing up from the earth with how the children are targeted. Once they captivate these upcoming generations, polluting them mentally, got their minds, controlling their minds, And what did he say earlier? I got to see that was profoundly wicked. What did he say? Keep the body. You must, let me find it. Help me, Father. I'm trying to find it with all these little words. Take the body. No, keep the body, take the mind. There you go. Keep the body, take the mind. All right, so, and that's what they doing with these generations now. Our younger generations, they hooked on everything. So far, they way out of their natural state. You know what I'm saying? Which is where these devils want us. Because in that mindset, with that psychology, you easily controlled. All right, going back to it though. Let's see. Therefore, if you break the female mother, excuse me, she will break the offspring in its early years of development. And when the offspring is old enough to work, she will deliver it up to you. For her normal female protective tendencies will have been lost in the original breaking process. For example, take the case of the wild stud horse, a female horse, and an already infant horse, and compare the breaking process with two captured nigger males in their natural state. A pregnant nigger woman with her infant offspring. Take the stud horse, break him for limited containment. Completely break the female horse until she becomes very gentle. Whereas you or anybody can ride her in her comfort. Breed the mare and the stud until you have desired the offspring. Then you can turn the stud to freedom until you need him again. Train a female horse whereby she will eat out of your hand, and she will in turn train an infant horse to eat out of your hand also. When it comes to breaking the uncivilized nigger, use the same process, but vary the degree and step up the pressure so as to do a complete reversal of the mind. Take the meanest and most restless nigger, strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male niggers, the female and the nigger infant. Tar and feather him. Tie each leg to a different horse faced in opposite directions. Set him afire and beat both horses to pull him apart in front of the remaining nigger. The next step is to take a bull whip and beat the remaining nigger male to the point of death in front of the female and the infant. Don't kill him, but put the fear of God in him, for he can be useful for future breeding. Man, these folks wicked. We'll elaborate some more. Look, man, the breaking process of the African woman. Take the female and run a series of tests on her to see if she will submit to your desires willingly. Test her in every way, because she is the most important factor for good economics. If she shows any sign of resistance in submitting completely to your will, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip on her to extract that last bit of resistance out of her. Take care not to kill her, for in doing so, you spoil good economic. When in complete submission, she will train her offsprings in the early years to submit to labor when they become of age. I guess there's a typo, or it probably was illiterate, and I don't know. But it says understanding is the best thing. Therefore, we shall go deeper into this area of the subject matter concerning what we have produced here in this breaking process of the female nigger. We have reversed the relationship in her natural uncivilized state. She will have a strong dependency on an uncivilized nigger male. And she will have a limited protective tendency toward her independent male offspring and will raise male offspring to be dependent like her. Nature had provided for this type of balance. We reversed nature by burning and putting a civilized nigger apart and bullwhipping the other to the point of death, all in her presence. By her being left alone, unprotected, with the male image destroyed, the ordeal caused her to move from her psychological dependent state to a frozen independent state. In this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reverse roles. Oh, man. Look at that, man. For fear of the young male's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent, but physically strong. Because she has become psychologically independent, she will train her female offspring to be psychological independent. Whatever you got, you've got the nigger women out front and the nigger man behind and scared. This is a perfect situation of sound sleep and economic. Before the breaking process, we had to be alertly on guard at all times. Now we can sleep soundly, for out of frozen fear his woman stands guard for us. He cannot get past her early slave molding process. He is a good tool, now ready to be tied to the horse at a tender age. By the time a nigger boy reaches the age of 16, he is soundly broken in and ready for a long life of sound and efficient work and the reproduction of a unit of good labor force. Continually through the breaking of uncivilized savage nigger, by throwing the nigger female savage into a frozen psychological state of independence, by killing of the protective male image, and by creating a submissive, dependent mind of the nigger male slave, we have created an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever, unless a phenomenon occurs and reshifts the position of the male and female slaves. We show what we mean by example. Take the case of the two economic slave units and examine them closely. All right, family. See, I'm trying not to elaborate too much on this. You know what I mean? But I pray, we be able to elaborate, because by me uploading it, I can't really engage with y'all like I really love to do. But man, it's a lot that this demon's saying, man. And our people suffering from this stuff right now. All right, so it says the nigger marriage. We breed two nigger males with two nigger females. Then we take the nigger males away from them and keep them moving and working. Say one nigger female bears a nigger female and the other bears a nigger male. Both nigger females being without influence of the nigger male image, frozen within independent psychology, will raise their offspring into reverse positions. The one with the female offspring would teach her to be like herself, independent and negotiable. We negotiate with her, through her, by her. We negotiate her at will. The one with the nigger male offspring, she being frozen with the subconscious fear for his life, will raise him to be mentally dependent and weak, but physically strong. In other words, body over mind. Now, in a few years, when these two offsprings become fertile for early reproduction, we will mate and breed them and continue the cycle. That is good, sound, and long-range comprehensive planning. Warning: possible interloping negatives. Earlier, we talked about the non-economic good of the horse and the nigger in their wild or natural state. We talked out the principle of breaking and tying them together for orderly production. Furthermore, we talked about paying particular attention to the female savage and her offspring for orderly future planning. Then more recently, we stated that by reversing the positions of the male and female savages, we created an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever, unless a phenomenon or the Most High occurred, the Great Awakening occurred and reshift and positions of the male and female savages. Now look at this. Even right now, just that we're the savages. Nick Cannon getting blasted right now for saying that. For saying that these fake Jews, these folks who claiming to be us, who stole our identity, parading themselves as us. He done got fired. He going to having a battle for his show. And I ain't gonna get into everything else about his life, but just dealing with that matter. It's okay for us to blast Future, Lil Wayne, all these other demonic rappers. It's okay for us to blast that music out there where we calling each other savages and niggas and kill one another and so on and so forth. And excuse the language. You know what I mean? If it offends you, but this the truth. It's okay for us to do that, to talk, for us to say that. But once we come out and then point out these real savages, when we point out the people who really doing this stuff, who through what we read in here, the system that was created and drove us into the mind state of killing one another and hating one another, being envious of one another, being divided the way we are. When we point out the real perpetrators, we get ridiculed and railroaded. This is all a part of this psychological plan where they say, forget about the past. Forget about slavery. Why? Because if you remember slavery, you got to say, okay, well, what is slavery? Okay, who were slaves? Okay, well, who enslaved those people? Who had them in bondage? And now when you see that and you discover all the atrocities and all the wickedness that they have done, their track record, like they put up so much. Man get gunned down by the police. Trayvon Martin get killed by George Zimmerman with a pack of Skittles in a hoodie. They want to go back to his record. Okay, well, he skipped the class in middle school. What they got to do with this young man that lost his life? What George Floyd being on drugs or whatever he was doing, what that got to do with this man kneeling down on his neck for 8 minutes and 36 seconds? What his past in that moment got to do with him not resisting being murdered? So if we're going to bring up the past, if we dig into that, now we got to point out, well, who did it? All right, was justice ever served? No, it wasn't. Since it wasn't served, okay, y'all got the answer for that. Okay, the phenomenon being the great awakening. We coming back to our heritage, all praises to the Most High. Where that envious spirit, that divisive spirit in the household is being destroyed and torn down. Israelites is standing up for their family. We valuing the family system more now. You know what I mean? We coming back to that, to where we value our sisters. Our sisters value the men. We value our children. We want to educate them. We want to be independent and self-reliant on our own and not dependent on their system. That's the phenomenon that they can't stop. The Most High said he gonna bring us back. Said in the land where what they told us that we were not, you know what I'm saying? God's people said it's gonna be told to you that y'all are the sons of the living God. All praise to the Most High, man. But this right here, this why. What we read in Isaiah 14, man. Amos chapter 9. This is why. This type of stuff. All right, but going back to it, we left off on, we was in the section with warning possible interloping negatives. Okay. All right, so I'm picking back up. I'm going to read that first part again. It says, earlier we talked about the non-economic good of the horse and the nigger in the wild or natural state. We talked out the principle of breaking and tying them together for orderly production. Furthermore, we talked about paying particular attention to the female savage and her offspring for orderly future planning. Then more recently, we stated that by reversing the positions of the male and female savages, we created an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever unless a phenomenon occurred and reshift in positions of the male and female savages. Our experts warned us about the possibility of this phenomenon occurring, for they say that the mind has a strong drive to correct and recorrect itself over a period of time. If I can touch some substantial original historical base. And they advised us that the best way to deal with the phenomenon is to shave off the brute's mental history and create a multiplicity of phenomena of illusions so that each illusion would twirl in its own orbit, something similar to floating balls in a vacuum. Ain't this? So they said, listen, we're going to destroy your mind. We're going to take away, we're going to cut you off from your heritage. Now, we know through disobedience, the Most High allowed this to happen. But we also know that when we read Obadiah, they said they overdid it. He said, you overdid it. Would the grape gatherers have left some grapes? All right, with those who come to rob, would they have left something? Now, y'all went too far. All right, but in that case, though, he said we're going to take the identity, but yet it's going to remain in them the essence and the element of the mindset to say that I got this feeling in me that I'm supposed to be something. I just don't know what. I can't explain this feeling inside of me, but I know I'm greater than this. So they laid out knowing that the gifts of the Most High is his gifts and callings without repentance. What he instilled in us, he ain't going to remove it from us. So having that mindset but misdirected, they saying, this is what we read is that, okay, we going to give them paths to choose, but all of them going to be false paths. We got to destroy them and they link to history. So now we getting into, okay, why they say, look, hey, forget about slavery. Don't worry about that. This is why we see that. All right, because they want to cut us out, because the moment that we realize the old paths, we got into this position for our disobedience. Are we supposed to be keeping the commandments of the Most High? It's through our disobedience he allowed us to come into this fallen state like this. For those that hate us to rule over us. They said we cannot allow them to get that information. Said so we gonna create the path of the Jehovah Witness. We're gonna create the path of being an atheist. We're gonna create the path for them to be pimps and prostitutes. We're gonna give them this illusion to feel like that the only thing that they should be striving to do is to please us and don't know that they don't have any value if we don't value them. The Roman Catholic Church, the traditional of today's present time Christianity. They said we're gonna lay all this out for them. So that when they do, because we can't take that element from them of knowing that they special, we're gonna direct the gift that they got. But we're going to still mislead them back to us to be dependent on us. Man, it's wicked, man. All right, it says this creation of multiplicity of phenomena, of illusions, entails the principle of crossbreeding the nigger and the horse, as we have stated above. The purpose of which is to create a diversified division of labor, thereby creating different levels of labor, and different values of illusion at each connecting level of labor, the results of which is the severance of the points of original beginnings for each sphere illusion. Since we feel that the subject matter may get some more complicated as we proceed in laying down our economic plan concerning the purpose, reason, and effect of crossbreeding horses and nigger, we shall lay down the following definition terms for future generations. So they got this thing set up. They thinking ahead to say, listen, even the words and the terms that we're using, we're going to lay out a vocabulary book, or we're going to give you some enlightenment and insight on what we mean with what we saying to pass down to our children, so that our children can rule over these niggers, as they put it. They got their children on board. But what? So this goes to what the Most High was telling us in Deuteronomy 6. Telling us in Deuteronomy 4, he said, listen, teach this to your children. Teach this to your sons and your sons' sons. Pass this information on down of who y'all are. That I saved y'all out of Egypt, the land of Ham, or Mitzrayim. I gave y'all the commandments. Pass it down to your children so that according to what we're reading, that our children be according to their term in a natural state, not defiant against the Most High. Therefore, not giving them the power, the authority, or opportunity to do what they talking about. So they children are keeping this same cycle going. Keep those illusions coming out. Keep the trends popping. Create the TV and the program so that they can be tuned in with that and not tuned into the frequency of the Most High God. All right, it says orbiting cycle means a thing turning in a given path. Axis or axes means upon which or around which a body turns. Phenomenon means something beyond ordinary conception and inspires awe or wonder. Or salat, awe and wonder. Multiplicity means a great number. Sphere means a globe. Crossbreeding a horse means taking a horse and breeding it with an ass, and you get a dumb, backward ass, long-headed mule that is not reproductive nor productive by itself. Look at that. So they know that was going to create or engineer, manipulate us, mold us into something that was basically what the Most High called us. Say sottish, stupid, destroyed, man. All right. It says crossbreeding niggers means mean taking so many drops of good white blood and putting them into as many nigger women as possible. Man, varying the drops by the various tone that you want, and then letting them breed with each other until another cycle of color appears as you desire. What this means is this: put the niggers and the horse in a breeding pot, mix some asses and some good white blood, and what do you get? You got a multiplicity of colors and ass backward, unusual niggers running, tied to a backward ass long-headed mule, the one productive of itself, the other sterile, the one constant, the other dying. We keep the nigger constant, for we may replace the mules for another tool. Both mule and nigger tied to each other, neither knowing where the other came from, and neither productive for itself, nor without each other. Control the language. Now this part right here is something, man. This part, man. It says crossbreeding completed. For further severance from their original beginning, we must completely annihilate the mother tongue of both the new nigger and the new mule and institute a new language that involves the new life's work of both. So cut them off from they speaking. Now listen to what this devil say. It says, language is a peculiar institution. It leads to the heart of a people. The more a foreigner knows about the language of another country, the more he is able to move through all levels of that society. Therefore, if the foreigner is an enemy of the country, to the extent that he knows the body of the language, to that extent is the country vulnerable to attack or invasion of a foreign culture. For example, if you take a slave, if you teach him all about your language, he will know all your secrets, and he is then no more a slave, for you can't fool him any longer. For example, if you told a slave that he must perform in getting out our crops, and he knows the language well, he would know that our crops didn't mean our crops, and the slavery system would break down. So the slave will recognize, okay, you're saying our crops, we sharing in it. Our crops, you ain't talking, or or in the case where you saying our crops, and all, you ain't saying that it's for us. You saying our crop, I'm a slave to you. I'm getting your crops. That's what you really mean. So it said if slaves knew that, the slavery system would break down. Nah, you ain't finna use me. All of this, but notice what he focusing on. He said that through language, all right, and said, man, our crops in the slavery system would break down, for he would relate on the basis of what our crops really meant. So you have to be careful in setting up the new language, for the slaves would soon be in your house, talking to you man to man. And that is death to our economic system. In addition, the definitions of words or terms are only a minute part of the process. Values are created and transported by communication through the body of the language. A total society has many interconnected value systems. All the values in a society have bridges of language to connect them for orderly working in the society. But for these language bridges, these many value systems will sharply clash and cause internal strife or civil war. The degree of the conflict being determined by the magnitude of the issues or relative opposing strength in whatever form. Now we're going into why they said, don't let them read. If you catch them reading, cut their tongues out, stab their eyes out, cut their heads off. You call him reading, don't touch him at all. Don't yell at them. Don't say nothing. Don't say nothing to her. Don't touch her. Go get their children and hang their children in front of them. for reading. All he was reading, go get his wife, rape his wife in front of him, brutally. Then you set her up, and then you go get those 2 horses, set him on fire, and you beat those 2 horses till they tear them apart. You do that in front of the raped wife if you catch him reading. All right, it says, for example, if you put a slave in a hog pen and train him to live there and incorporated him to value it as a way of life completely, the biggest problem you would have out of him is that he would worry you about provisions to keep the hog pen clean. Or the same hog pen and make a slip and incorporate something in his language whereby he comes to value a house more than he does his hog pen. You got a problem. He will soon be in your house. Okay, family. It's a vast amount of, things we could elaborate on, touch bases on, draw it out of the scriptures, related to our history book, and definitely to relate it to today's time and society, man. The Willie Lynch letter. This is what we just read. This is what we just went through. I want to know y'all's thoughts. I would like, because like again, I said, I'm uploading this, so I can't interact with y'all live like I want to. But I definitely would like to dialogue and have some type of discourse on this for those who do tune in and listen to it through and through. Or if you've read it on your own. But my judgment gonna be set. My judgment is on the way. Judgment is happening right now. This kingdom is crumbling. It's going down, driven into the ground more and more. And the kingdom of Israel, Israelites, the new Jerusalem, that's what's coming. But all of this done because who we are. And we suffering from these things today for the lack of. It says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. The knowledge of self, the knowledge of who we are. And aside from that, the knowledge of who our enemies are. The scripture, let me get this, man. Luke chapter 1. For some of us to talk about enemies and relating it to the scriptures, some people, they just upset their spirit. But you're not reading it. And you're not dealing with a full deck of cards if you think that the world and life itself and the walk with the Most High is all dependent upon being nice and smooth, being kind and all that. He said, as much as lie within you. He said, if it be possible, as much as lie within you, be at peace with all men. Letting you know it's not possible in all cases. All right, but nonetheless about enemies. I'm in Luke chapter 1. Starting with verse 6 to 8, it says, blessed be the Most High power of Israel, for he have visited and redeemed his people, and have raised up an horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David, as he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began, that we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all that hate us, to perform the mercy promised to our fathers and to remember his holy covenant. All right, and I'm just going to stop it right there. So he said he raised up Mashiach for this reason, to save us from our enemies and all them that hate us. And this really, man, this what we just read, the Willie Lynch stuff. This is just a template of what they got going, because now the thing that came to where they putting it in the food and clothes and the skies, and they got the TV to make them spread it at an even more rapid rate. They got the radio. They got devices and technology to assist them in this thing to get it going and keep it more and more sufficient. Like he said through the letter. Now they can have sound sleep. But all praise to the Most High, man, that it's going to go down. It's going down, and it's gonna go down when that judgment be returned upon their heads. All right, so with that, man, I pray that it was edifying. And again, I would definitely like to have a dialogue, you know what I mean, with the nation about it. Let's talk about this, man. Let's discuss this, brothers and sisters, and reread it. Download it yourself. Read it. Let's read this to our children. Get them educated on it, to understand this thing, to understand the mindset of the wicked against the Most High's chosen people. All right. So in the meanwhile, to reach me, send that information to children of the prophets 144@gmail.com. There's a lot more to say, but I end it there. Shabbat Shalom, family.